Hello. How many of you have ever seen one of these signs before? My name is Monica, and I started seeing these signs in my rural farming community of Groveland, New York, around the summer of 2010. They started decorating my neighbors' lawns in the upstate New York community, like political signs during an election year. And I said, "What the frack?" Just like you, if I see something enough, I'm going to start asking questions. It's a classic technique that advertisers use to sell products. Who doesn't recognize the McDonald's Golden Arches or the blue Ford Oval sign? My initial research led me to discover these signs aren't an advertising gimmick. They're not about building tough trucks or selling French fries. Fracking is a hazardous process which causes environmental damage. Fracking is just another way big energy companies want to use the land for wealth, the way that Goliath and the Philistine armies wanted to take the land from David and the Israelites. They don't care that the farmers will be left with contaminated water and poisoned land. In the simplest of terms, hydraulic fracture drilling, or fracking, uses chemically treated water to drill for natural gas. The process causes groundwater contamination and forest degradation. It poses serious health hazards to the general public, and it generates toxic waste. The energy companies are focused on today's wealth and not tomorrow's consequences. If the choice is health or wealth, I say no fracking way. Now, if I were to give you the scientific definition of hydraulic fracturing, it's so full of technical terms and incomprehensible long words, you'd probably fall asleep and your eyes would glaze over. So let me simplify it. The official title is hydraulic fracture drilling. I can't even say it. In upstate New York, it's referred to as slick water fracking or just fracking. A group of New Yorkers called New Yorkers Against Fracking, or NIAF, says it's a process that leaves unusable farmland with contaminated water. Energy companies inform us that it's a process developed by a man named Halliburton, but they neglect to tell us that it pumps millions of gallons of water containing up to 250 toxic chemicals into the ground. In layman's terms, imagine a gigantic fire hose attached to a drill, forcing water and sand into the ground, breaking apart the shale bed, and releasing pockets of methane gas into the upper levels to be capped off and used for natural gas. Now let's face it, environmentalists are just as guilty of slanting their information as energy corporations can be. So in order to be fair, I went on to the opposing side's website and wanted to gain some information. I accessed a video clip on YouTube from Exxon Corporation, the Exxon Valdez owners, and the actual whole website is called Perspectives. It's authored by Ken Cohen, who happens to be an executive of Exxon. And it's very informative. It tells you the whole process, the four-step process, from the paperwork to the setup of the drill, the actual drilling, and the cap off and setup of the wells. I'm a right side thinker. That means I read, I take notes, I study, and that's how I learn. But for those of us who have to see something in order to understand it, it's a very visual tool. I even learned something that was very interesting to me. The depth to which they drill is equivalent to 8 Empire State Buildings, one on top of each other. And they drill down this way and then horizontally. And the drill is then encased in steel and concrete. Now, they're the owners of Exxon Valdez, so they would never think of slanting their data now, would they? The Philistines used Goliath's size to frighten the Israelites, just as the energy companies are trying to use their power in the courts. The controversy is still about land, but today's agriculturists are armed with more than a slingshot. They make use of the law to blindside and defeat the corporate giants.